And we are live.
Ja.
Bare et spørsmål til dere som er her allerede. Ser dere oss greit? Hører dere oss greit? I'll try to get a reply if everything's okay with the sound and the video.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, sounds good.
Yes. That's great. We'll start in 10 minutes.
Perfect.
You see the number is rising, which is good. We are.
Fantastic.
I think it must be a new record for the number of participants.
Amazing.
Yeah, they are interested in you, and that's good. With good reason. The Axel is here. He's one of our instructors, and he was also having a YouTube channel. So
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, from over in Bodo, I think. Yes. Is it?
you met him?
No, I haven't. I just on Instagram I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. He was up north a while ago for looking sailing and diving with orcas.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm actually, recently there's been orcas going all around here, around the area here, and some of the exact same paths I've been diving in the area. So I'm like really super excited. Hopefully, I'll get to see them.
Yeah, so not afraid.
No, it's exciting. It's like it's like a shark, but a dinosaur shark. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's very. It's yeah. I was up there diving with them once, and it's such a special experience. Yeah, you feel small. I can say that.
yeah. I can imagine, Axel. It'd be epic. I'm looking forward to it. I've only ever seen them, from boat. What I saw them from the shore the other day here. I was just driving the car, and they were swimming along the coastline, and I was just like, whoop, just watching them driving. If I had all my diving stuff with me, I would have just stopped the car and jumped straight in.
A lot of known names here, and that's fun. Axel says you'll get way too much adrenaline to be afraid. No worries.
Yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of amazing sort of like bridges and underflows in areas here where they've been kind of going around everywhere. They've been like, in one day, I know the other day they were in like 10, 15 different spots, just cruising up and down, and you could literally drive from one spot and they'll be coming past another spot. So as soon as I hear them, they're back again, I'm going to go straight and find them.
So if you're ending up missing, we know where to what might have happened. It's just I think there's just was it one known incident where orcas have attacked people in the water? It's
Oh yeah, really? Okay.
not common at all.
Yeah, no,
It's
not
very
common at
strange.
all. Yeah.
do the official start in 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Oh, yep, I see. So yeah, none recorded in the wild, but just SeaWorld. What that probably serves the human right for putting the orcas in SeaWorld.
Have you seen Blackfish?
Which one's Blackfish?
It's a no, it's a documentary on Netflix about the orcas in SeaWorld.
No, I haven't seen that actually. Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
It's not good advertisement for SeaWorld, I can say that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's one clip of like a person working at the aquarium with a whale that's in the water, and the whale is pulling the person down to 10 meters, releasing, and then the trying to swim to the surface, and he pulls them back down, up and down, just playing with the person. It's just yeah, it's very frightening. So
Yeah,
should definitely look it up.
yeah. I'm gonna check it out. That's sounds intense.
Yeah. Susanne is joining, which is good. She was joining a cleanup in Ålesund.
Oh, fantastic.
She's been trying to help me solve a mystery about like a carpet of a bacteria or mineral or something that's laying on the bottom
Oh,
in
yeah.
a place in
Yeah, I
the
saw.
Oslo. Yeah, we were waiting for the result of that.
Yeah, interesting.
Trying to ask ChatGPT about it yesterday, and it has some different possible explanations. So it's fun to see what it actually is. Hello,
Hello.
Susanne. It would be fun to see if any of the participants would like to introduce themselves in the chat. It's also always nice just to tell us short who you are and where you're diving, and also your favorite seafood dish. So then we
Yeah,
might
absolutely.
know what we'll talk about. This will be a kind of a relaxed chat. We have a kind of a theme that we'll go through, but if there's questions, if you have questions on the way, it's perfect. Just ask them, and then we might take have a chat about that, and then we go on. We'll be going for 2 hours, and yeah, maybe a bit more if we're having too much to talk about, and if there's many questions. But yeah, that's like the brief plan.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Hilda is using kelp to cook. And
Fantastic.
yeah, same as you.
Amazing. Oh, it's great. The vegetables of the sea.
Yeah, and Trine has the same favorite species as you with scallops.
Amazing.
She's from Tromsø and likes to dive around Sommarøy. It's a bit yeah, it's up in the area.
Amazing.
Axel has already been introduced with the guy with the YouTube channel. I'd recommend going in and looking at Axel's channel. He's doing lots of cool adventures, both hunting competitions and going around with bringing a spear gun in water several times. And it's I've never seen a person as happy as Axel is when he catches a fish that he really wants. So
It is.
screaming when
It's
he reaches the surface with the halibut, or yeah. So time to go on another adventure with Axel soon. Lauritz is from the same areas as me. He likes hunting, looking for crab and scallop.
okay.
And Henrik was at Hitra last weekend looking for scallops and fish.
Oh, amazing.
And he spotted 15 to 20 orcas, which is nice.
Yeah, that's incredible. Very exciting.
Okay, we are now at the clock is 8, so I think we'll start with the official program. And if you have questions on the way, please ask them in the Q&A. Out to the right is the bubble with a question mark in. I think the first slide will be like just a presentation about who you are. So please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for coming. It's really exciting to be both here in Norway and then also having a chat with Martin here and everybody else. So I recently just moved over here to Norway in January from Australia. I'm a chef. I've been working as a chef for about 22, 23 years now, and I've been lucky to work a little bit around internationally quite a bit. But I've always loved adventure, the outdoors, and everything that's sort of connected to it with it. So for me, life is basically about adventure and really living and doing as much as you possibly can, and also eating and having a fun-filled, sort of healthy, fun life. And so for me, I started spearfishing when I was pretty young. I first started surfing, and then as soon as I found that I could jump in the water and catch some fish and maybe some lobster or something else, that was it. Um, so for me, spearfishing is all about the thrill and adventure. First, you get into the water and you're in a completely different world. Everything closes off and calms, and everything else shuts down. And then you have the thrill of, you never know what to expect or find. You could go there every single day and you could stumble upon different things and exciting things. So for me, I've always tried to center myself being around somewhere where I can have as much adventure as possible. So that's getting out diving, spearfishing, and in the past a lot of forward driving, hunting things and stuff like this. But for me, so I really specialize in wild food and really putting sort of food experiences and sort of journeys together. So working in fine dining for most of my career. Spent a big bit of time in China, working in China, all over Asia, New Zealand, a little bit of North America. And so for me, really super excited to be over here in Norway, and based in Lofoten up here, and the head chef of Holman Lofoten here. And so for me, it's about creating incredible food experiences for people. So when people eat, they have more than just a meal, and they get to have a little bit of a story and an experience when they eat as well. So and not just to be physically and beautiful, but also when you sort of eat and you experience it, you kind of learn a little bit about it as well. So a little bit of an educational storytelling, I guess we could call it.
Sounds good. And how many times a week are you diving?
Well, so that another one of the reasons why I moved up here. So if I can, I'll be in the water 4 or 5 times a week. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by ocean and the coast here in many, many different areas. So for me, if I can, I'll be in the water. Look, I would love to be in the water every day, but look, on average, I'll be in the water at least 3 or 4 times a week minimum.
That's more than I've been able to do lately, and so I envy you. I've been stuck in Oslo for a bit now, and I feel like it's when I see your adventures, it's always I really want to go out and dive. So yeah, it's time to get back in the water soon.
Absolutely. Well, that's one thing I sort of said to myself over the last couple of years. I need to sort of have myself situated and placed in the area where I can really work and try to push my career and life goals, but also be within close enough proximity to the water. So if I don't have to drive an hour or two to go diving. And in the past, I have been in areas where it's been many hours for me to go to the ocean and sea and stuff like this, because of work and other things. So but for now, it's I really want to center myself around being where I love, and I love being between the mountains and the sea, really. So and lucky that Lofoten is really the place for that.
What brought you to Lofoten?
So the main reason I came to Lofoten, so I actually got sent and heard about this really incredible restaurant over here in Lofoten in Sortevågen. And I sort of, I checked them out, I looked them up, and I saw first where they're situated, and of course, an incredibly beautiful and picturesque place. But Holmen Lofoten is a really incredible venue that is, sort of a luxury accommodation and restaurant at the same time, but a place that has been around for quite some time and does a lot of natural storytelling and things itself. So for me, it was an incredible opportunity to come and work in this incredible restaurant, but to be sort of fully immersed in nature and really try to put together immersive experiences for people so they can come in and have some incredible food, but food that's inspired by the local area, the ingredients, the stories and history of the area, but put together in a fun, interesting, modern way, but sort of with a big sustainable approach. So here at Holmen Lofoten, we use a lot of wild food from all around the area. So we do a lot of foraging for wild plants and fruits and berries and things and stuff like this, obviously in season. Obviously now being a lot colder and, winter season, a lot of people might think that there's nothing around, but actually at the moment, we are picking and getting about 10 to 12 different types of seaweeds. We're getting some of the, easier things like some, obviously green juniper and the berries, both green and ripe. But also with the fact that it's sort of, so cold now, we also cut lots of shoots from things like rowan and blackcurrant, birch and other things, and we put them inside the restaurant and we'll sprout them to get early shoots and leaves. So for me at Holmen, the reason I came over here was to sort of really wanted to push and further my career and start a new sort of adventure and journey with Holmen Lofoten, and really try to sort of take it even further. It's already an incredible restaurant, and it already had such a great sort of history and story about it, and so I wanted to come join the team and help try to sort of drive it even further.
Nice. I want to visit Holmen soon, and you've. I think I'm invited now, so it's. I'll definitely come as soon as possible. I'll just give a brief introduction to who I am as well. I'm the course manager, kursansvarlig in Frivannsliv, and I've been doing these webinars lately. Find it very interesting, and it's also a lot of fun to invite some special guests from time to time. So we've had a visit from Fjøre Tommy. If you haven't seen that webinar, he's a really, let's say, a nerd about all the small creatures living around in the shallows, especially. And the whole webinar is laying on YouTube, and we'll also put up this webinar later on YouTube as well. I've been a freediving instructor since 2016, but I've been diving all my life. Took my first freediving course when I was 11, and I haven't been. I've spent a lot of time in the sea, both mostly from on Sunnmøre, and also more up and down the coast now, after I've been able to travel around and teaching freediving courses all over the place, and it's so much fun. And I hope to see many of you, of the participants, joining in on a course or meeting up at a festival or a different occasion in the water. My everyday job is to be a rower. I'm competing internationally in rowing, and I've been joining two Olympic Games, and I'm starting to reach the end of my career, I guess. And the freediving is more of a hobby, but it's been a little bit. I've been able to have it a little bit as a job as well, and I really love it. I'm also working in marine restoration, so we do like small-scale marine restoration initiatives around Oslo, and working on getting proper permits for doing that. So it means that we'll plant kelp in the inner Oslo fjord, hoping to help the fjord that way by bringing out like the nutritional salts that's building up in the fjord, which is the main reason for the lack of life. And we are also putting in lots of blue mussels and tunicates that are filter feeders, and they also bring out these particles from the water. And it's a fun way of or an interesting way of learning more about the marine ecosystem in a place where it's not as beautiful as in Lofoten, to say it nicely. And like Elijah, I'm also involved in apnea with a little bit of deep free diving from time to time on a rope. It's fun, and it's some of the things you can do when you live in Oslo compared to the beautiful west coast or the northern part of the country. And I've also been spearfishing a lot. I'm also teaching some courses in spearfishing. So it's as a freediver, you can do a lot of different stuff, both marine restoration and deep diving and spearfishing and whatever you want. There's so many opportunities, and it's so much fun. I'll do this in Norwegian. It's probably the best. Vi har fått en rabattkode. Det er han Pål på Frivannsliv som har delt ut den rabattkoden her. Så det er bare å notere ned. Vi kan skrive den også i chatten. Den varer ut måneden, og den gir 20% rabatt på veiledende priser. Det er stort sett det meste utenom elektronikk og karbonprodukt, så for eksempel dagvarfinner. Rabattkoden slår nok ikke det salget som er på gang nå, så hvis dere går inn på Frivannsliv sine sider, så finner dere noen gode dealer, blant annet en utstyrspakke som nå er til 44% rabatt. Så jeg vet ikke om man sier løp og kjøp eller noe sånt. Det er i hvert fall det er gode tilbud om dagen, så hiv dere rundt hvis dere trenger noe. Vi går videre. So, why do you spearfish? The simple question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I put a couple of little dot points in there, you know, in no specific order. Look, one of the biggest things is health, you know, like spearfishing is an incredible way to keep your health and fitness in check. And that's, you know, like diving, holding your breath, keeping, you know, your ability to be able to push further. So it's kind of like a different sort of cardio. So health is a really big part of it. And, you know, the more you do it, you can kind of set different goals and challenges for yourself with apnea. And that's, for instance, how long you can hold your breath, or how, long you can stay in the water, or different things like this. And, you know, the more your health grows with it, the more you can do, and sort of the levels of different sort of fish that you can start achieving to catch and get grows and grows and grows. You know, you start here with your health, and, you know, like even me, I remember when I started, I thought I was, you know, really great. I still have some really great mates that make me look like, I'm in kindergarten, you know? But health is a big thing. And then, you know, lifestyle. So, and I say lifestyle because I think spearfishing is a real, you know, when you get into it, you actually start to think that it's a whole entire lifestyle. So I'll put it in perspective. So for instance, for me, even food that I eat over the past probably year and a half, not just a year and a half, over probably the past, let's say 2 years, because I've been in more places and areas where I've been right on the coast. I probably haven't bought any seafood I haven't bought any seafood at all. So when I want to have some different seafood or fish, or, you know, to eat at home, I'll go out, and part of my lifestyle is catching or sourcing different fish that I can use and have for myself at home. And then, you know, one of the biggest parts with it, you know, it's the adventure part of it, you know. So, I mean, who doesn't love a good adventure? You know, that's what life is really all about. Life is just one big adventure, just waiting to be explored. And, you know, diving and getting in the water, you know, there's so many different areas and terrains and anywhere and everywhere you can go. And for each one, it's kind of like going on a hike. In essence, diving and spearfishing, it's kind of like having an underwater hike. And that in essence is just an amazing adventure. So everywhere you go, anywhere you go, it doesn't matter how long you go for, it's an adventure. And then, you know, and this is mixes with the sort of the adventure part. It's exploring the unknown, you know. Look, there's not many places we can go these days in the world, you know, except of course there is remote areas and corners and parts of the world that is completely still unknown and touched. But, you know, a big part of the ocean and sea might be, you know, completely unknown or untouched, or even, you know, never been dived there and explored. So everywhere you go, maybe there has been somebody, but you also could be going to a different spot where potentially nobody has been there for, you know, 100 years or 50 years. So you're really exploring, and you never know what you're going to find. You know, you might go down there, you could find, you could find something as incredible as an old vintage thing one day, or unfortunately you might dive somewhere and you might find, a trolley because it's not supposed to be there, which I'm sure Martin is finding a lot when he's doing some of the cleanups, and other people. But
Yeah.
exploring the unknown, so that sort of interest, that creates a really a big sense of excitement. Going somewhere that potentially hasn't been seen or experienced before. And then, one of the biggest things for it, like fish and seafood, like I spearfish because, you jump in the water, you have adventure, you have some fun. It's great for your health. But then you come out and you can see by the smile on my face, you get, and this fish, for example, it took me 4.5, nearly 5 months to be able to catch one of these fish. And it was at a depth of like 17, 18 meters. And this was only after about 2 hours of diving. But fish and seafood, you can come out of the water with some incredible fish and seafood, and not just for yourself, but I think one of the most exciting things about it is sharing it with people. And that's, and then so for me, that also circles back to, why do I spearfish? And it's because I love food. And, as being a chef, of course, I'm very biased, but, at the end of the day, everybody still has to eat. And if you're going to eat, if anyone can have the chance and opportunity to eat something that is more interesting or better or tasty, then you will. Most people want to. And for me, I really love food. So to be able to go out there and explore and get a fish that I can get the whole entire fish or crab or whatever it may be, and then instead of when you go to the supermarket and you get maybe a cut fillet or you get this, you have the whole entire thing. So that means there's so many different things and dishes and creations you can kind of make out of it. So I spearfish because for me, it's the ultimate thrill of living and enjoying life, and not just for myself, but something that I get to constantly share with anybody or somebody else around the world. And not just that, it's something that, for instance, you could go from here and you could message somebody in a spearfishing group. Let's say if you were over in Africa, or if you're in United States, and then you link up and you can suddenly instantly have a friend somewhere else on the side of the world because you love this sort of adventure. And that could be just diving or spearfishing. So realistically, I could go on for probably another hour on this topic, but I'll have to slow myself down. And Martin, you have to stop me if I keep talking too much, because
it's great. It's just it's a ball that starts rolling, and it makes my job very easy. But I just wanted to elaborate on the adventure part. And you mentioned the trash dives. We do cleanups around Oslo every Sunday now. So if you want to join one of the cleanups, go to Oslo Frivillige Klubb on Facebook and join the event from there. And you can really find everything. So on one of the dives, I found like a 2-liter bottle of Vikingfjord vodka, 40%. It had with barnacles on it and everything. It looks really, really cool. And the day after, we found like 8 beers under a floating sauna. So it was I was self-served on alcohol for a while.
I hope it's still on your shelf at home.
Yeah.
or somewhere else,
I brought it to a birthday party, and it was great fun.
Yeah.
And also when you mentioned the depth you had to go to catch this fish. So we are lucky in Norway that we don't actually need to be exceptional spearfishers and take risk in that, like going deep. Most of the fish can be found like in 5 meters depth. It's not like it's not very often you need to push yourself very deep, and especially now during the winter, there's not much. You won't see many large fish in the daytime, but if you go out in the evenings when it's dark with a torch, you can find large fish like almost on the surface. I think that's a nice thing for beginners to hunt in Norway. It's not you don't need to be in exceptionally good shape or like an athlete of the sport. It's just it's something that fits everyone. It's so much fun to bring newbies out to learn how to forage and also spearfish. And it's it's really
absolutely
great fun.
Yeah, and as you said about that, there's so many different levels of what you can get. As soon as you jump in the water, there's so many different things.
What's a successful spearfishing or foraging trip to you?
Yeah. Well, look, so a successful spearfishing or foraging trip, realistically, it's every single spearfishing and foraging trip is a successful one because, first thing to get out there and do it, just going out there and doing it, that's the first part of it, and that's a success in itself because you're present and you've gone out and you've done it, and then that basically directly moves into my next thing, and it's really a successful spearfishing foraging trip. It's you really knowing and feeling, being present and being fully immersed in it, and really being out there enjoying it. So because it can be and it can be really easy to say, oh look, I'm going to sit on the couch, I'm not going to do anything, and especially when it can be cold like this. And I'll be honest, I have never done so much cold water diving or diving in such a cold place before. Most of the places I've been diving is in hot, warm, tropical places. I've been diving in New Zealand and Tasmania, in the bottom of Australia, and Melbourne, but still it doesn't compare anywhere near to the cold and diving up here in the snow. And I'm not going to lie, when it's snowing and cold outside, it can be very easy to go, oh, I'm going to sit at home and have a hot chocolate and or whatever it is. But just going out there and getting stuck into it, then that feeling really invigorates you and makes you feel amazing. And then so the next part of it, for a successful trip, is being able to share it with friends, colleagues, and family. And just as you were saying before, Mike, like anybody and everybody can go out there and do it. So it's such an inclusive thing. There's absolutely anybody and you could do it in a group of a couple to bigger. Obviously, if you're going in a really, really big group spearfishing, then of course you're probably going to scare off heaps of the species. So you'll end up doing a bit of a, underwater tour with probably less fish and things around. But, still, so you can, sharing it with as many different people as you want. And then, with, any sort of sport or activity you do, you have sort of goals and achievements, so a successful spearfishing trip or goal could just, be going and, for example, when I was over on Christmas Island last year, when I went out there, some of the first dives and things I did, I just went out diving and I would dive and I would just study and watch different fish to see how they move and how they get around. And some of these fish, I would go out for a couple of times. And honestly, it was a couple of months before I even tried to shoot some of these fish because I wanted to work out exactly how they swim, how they dive, how they get spooked and scared, because there's no point going down there and just damaging and injuring heaps of fish in the process trying to get one fish, So, and that's trying to set yourself a goal or an achievement that you want, or, and because some fish are a little bit harder to hunt or find than others, so goals and achievements. And then all that might be as simple as something as, as with apnea, maybe doing some free diving, maybe getting down to, 5 meters first. And then from there, setting yourself some new goals, and with a little bit more health and fitness and some breathing practice, then you'll get down to 10 meters and then next 15 and 20, and you'll be able to keep going further and further the more you push yourself and work on it. And then also the simplicity of it, like it's, a successful spearfishing and foraging trip is just, it's nothing, you don't have to, like, of course, there's a process to, look, you need to be out there and to do it properly. You want to have good gear, and that's, not always just only diving gear, but, if you're going out on a foraging trip, you're going to go up in the mountains and get things, you need to be equipped to do whatever you do. But then, once you have this stuff, it's simplicity. All you do is go out there and do it. You don't have to, when you get out there, you don't have to register something else, do something else. You go out there, and from there on, it's just pure relaxation and enjoyment. And to have the best time and to be your best self in the water, it's about relaxation and being, just simple and calm. And then you can push yourself further. You can stay for longer, and you can kind of do and create and get more out of it. And then, at the end of it, and I'm sure most people on here would know this as well, at the end of a diving trip, or it could be just free diving on the line or spearfishing or doing a cleanup, after you look around and then people's faces, the excitement and the enjoyment and smiles. And really that sums it up, that's a successful spearfishing or foraging trip.
Yeah, that's it's true. I had a kind of the experience you were talking about there. I had it couple of weeks ago. I was a week ago. I was in Ålesund, and I had just a few days, and the weather was so terrible. It was blowing 25 meters per second, and I was tired from a lot of training on the day, and it was dark, and it was but I had this friend that wanted to go out, and it was just him pushing me was it brought me out, and I was just like barely hanging on, but getting in the water and getting the cold water in the face, I immediately woke up and got a beautiful dive, and we found like a sheltered area where the visibility was okay, and there was no big waves at all. So it was just it's just about getting out there and go diving as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, like I mean, really, you've got to be in it to win it, you know. So the more you do it, the more enjoyment you get out of it, and the more thrill you get out of it, and you know, the more you'll achieve.
Yeah, and the wetsuit it gets easier and easier to get it on after when you've used it a couple of times. So if the hurdle is to get the wetsuit on, then just be patient and do it a couple more times, and then it will get easier. It's not. How was it for you to get used to the 7mm wetsuit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, you know, 7mm wetsuit, I mean, a lot thicker, a lot heavier, and it puts a lot more pressure and everything on you. So before I went out for any dives, I put it on like 5 or 6 times, and I did it at home, in the shower. I did it outside. I tried to do it in every element to try and practice and push just myself getting in it and moving around and just trying to, you know, get really active in it. And I think it's so, yeah, you know, it's that, and also how you get into it and how fast and comfortable you make it for yourself. So I think how you slide and get into it is important. And also another thing for me here, which was, I mean, of so much importance, especially if I'm changing into my wetsuit when I'm out somewhere, you know, you've got to have a big hot thermos with some hot water and really heat that wetsuit. Because if you heat that wetsuit up, and then you have some good, you know, kind of like the slippy stuff that Frivannsliv has to slip it on, get it on fast. Then, you know, like the other day I was out for nearly 4.5 hours diving in the water here, and it was like 3-4 degrees. And honestly, I mean, I couldn't feel my my lips and part of my face. I thought it had fallen off, but everything else was fine, and I was enjoying it. I was having a great time.
So, what's your favorite seafood, Norwegian seafood? I see you've written scallops.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, don't get me. I love fish. You know, fish is for me is always, you know, is the greatest thing. But for me, scallops is always. It's been a bit more. It's a bit more of a harder and special thing because, of course, they're not in every area in Australia and or other places that I've been. And you know, and the scallops, you know, the shells maybe that I've got in Australia before have been about this big. You know, maybe the biggest one I think I've got was about this big. And, you know, so in Australia, the scallops can be, you know, from, look, if you're really lucky, maybe 5 to 8 meters. But then a lot of the times the scallops are going down 25, 30, 40 meters. And then, you know, but the scallops over here, you know, so far that I started finding, and to be honest, it still took me about 3 or 4 days to find scallops first. But when I did, and you know, the scallops, like some of the shells that I'm finding over here, which is, I mean, they're ridiculous. They're monsters. And I remember some of the first, I cooked 2 of them up and ate 2 of them, and I was like, oh, I don't really need anything else to eat. I'm nearly full. And the scallops, you know,
I found this picture. You see, it's from Helgelandskysten, Himmelblå brygge. It was from a course there, and it's one of those places where there's just endless with scallops, and
wow.
it's another example of what I'd like to go when I'm going on freediving, spearfishing, foraging trips. I try to bring as much plastic with me back as possible. So this was I found this lid from it's like from an emergency boat from a ferry or something, and it made a perfect bucket for what we found. It's a couple of fish and fish and a bit of crabs and just a bunch of scallops.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, so for me, you know, look, I really love scallops. You know, scallops are amazing, and you can do so many things with them. But then also fish, you know, like for me, and honestly, it's a really tough one. Out of the you know, fish, because look, realistically, I love flatfish. But in Australia, the biggest flatfish we might have might be, if we're really lucky, it might be a kilo. You know, like, and that's a really big flounder. And then over here you have, so many different types of flatfish. I mean, I'll be honest, at the moment, like I haven't seen too many really big fish around, but I know because of the colder. I mean, except for when I've gone diving under one bridge. But I've still got quite a few plaice and some flounder and other things like that. Some good nice table size ones at the moment. But for me, I specifically really like flatfish because of just the body structure of how they are, and then what you can do with them. You can with a flatfish, and especially honestly, some of the small table size ones are really amazing because you can you fillet them and leave the fillets on, remove the bone, and you can stuff them and then roast and grill them, or you can cut them into certain sort of like chunks and cutlets and French them up almost like a lamb cutlet. Or then, of course, when you get slightly bigger ones, you can do really like just like little riblets and things and stuff like that. So for me, and obviously I've cooked with and I've worked with quite a few big halibuts, but at the moment that's more ordering them in and stuff in the restaurant. But with them as well, they make they're amazing smoked and cured or turned into salami and things like that.
We'll go into the depth of halibut a little bit later.
Yes. Yeah.
And for this topic about how you like spearfishing and foraging in Norway so far, we have been covering a little bit of it already. But is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, so far it's been incredible. I've only been here, just 2 months now, and I think I've already clocked over something like 25 dives, and like many hours of diving, and a lot of them have just been going diving in different areas to just try and find and see what I can explore and see what's there and just tick species off the list and see what I find. But it's completely different. For me, it's an entire different world, because how some of the terrain is, the currents, and how the makeup and layout of the land is here. It's very, very different. But it's been really incredibly fulfilling. Not just like physically, but also, with just with everything I see and taste and find. So honestly, it's been super rewarding.
Good. And yeah, it's quite a difference between spearfishing in Australia and Norway, and just I would guess it's quite different to spearfish on the east coast compared to the west coast of Australia as well. As you can see on the picture, Norway is quite small.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, spearfishing around Australia, it's a whole entire different ball game and different, and it's very different around different parts of Australia because we have some specific areas around Australia where the minute you even are ready to shoot a fish or anything like this, you'll have like between 5 to 10 sharks in the area around you. So you have to have at least 2 or 3 people, absolute bare minimum, in the water to keep an eye on things, to watch and try and retrieve your fish so it doesn't go. The terrain everywhere is different. And that can be from the top of Australia down to the bottom of Australia and then going all the way around. And then there's some areas in Australia that you cannot even go diving at all because you have saltwater crocodiles and you have bull sharks everywhere and poisonous jellyfish and octopuses and things.
Everything in Australia wants to kill you, and I guess it's kind of true.
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, but like the spearfishing community in Australia is massive. It's really and a lot of the time, and that's and the great thing about that is everybody's there really trying to look after each other's backs and look after each other. And I think that's the most important thing about diving is really trying to look after each other and having a buddy there to keep an eye on things. So when you're doing something and vice versa, but and then so it's, some of the big difference, like weather, of course, is very, very different. One thing I've been really surprised about everywhere around here, a lot of areas around here, just, the clarity has been absolutely incredible in lots of different areas, just amazing. And there's been a lot of areas I've been in Australia, and sometimes we're waiting 2-3 months until we can actually dive because the swell and the waves are so big, or you just cannot see anything at all. Some of these areas, if you can't see enough to go out, it's just too dangerous because of other things that are in the water as well. And then you have the temperature as well. Look, honestly, temperature in Australia, in a lot of places in Australia, you can wear like a really thin wetsuit top, and then you can just wear a pair of shorts, And then look, you get down a bit further, Melbourne, Tasmania, and you have to, wear a little bit thicker wetsuit. The species, I mean, of course, completely different, and that goes with the weather and the temperature. I mean, the species, in Australia, we have probably, over 60 different varieties of cod, for example, but so different, from small ones to big ones, and these colorful ones in the reef. So terrains, and then potential dangers, which I've just touched on, and then even just the cooking and things and stuff as well. But so it's so incredible to be so much further away and somewhere else so different in the world, and but to be doing exactly what I love, but in a completely different environment.
There's a YouTuber, I guess most spear fishermen and women is one of the bigger accounts, the Youngbloods. I guess you've seen it as well.
The what? Sorry.
Youngbloods.
Oh yeah, Brody Moss. Yeah.
So it's just it's quite kind of different from spearfishing in Norway, from what you see from those adventures as well. And we talked about how everything in Australia wants to kill you, and I see that Susanne has commented that Norway has exploding cheese underwater, and it's a reference to one of our cleanups as well. We were diving around this military facility, like a historical military facility. It's not as operational a lot anymore. It's more of a museum, or there's a little bit going on. But we were diving around there doing the cleanup, looking for trash, and we found a bottle of wine with the cap still on. So we thought it might be some valuable wine, and after a little bit we found a cheese. So it was like a white cheese, shaped like a cheese, about half a kilo.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was when we put it on shore, it started smoking. There was smoke coming out of it, and we thought that it might not be cheese anyway. So and it might be dangerous. So we started calling the police and the military and trying to find out what to do with it. And we got the advice to get it back in the water as quickly as possible, because it was probably hexanite. I don't know. It's white phosphorus, which was also not. It's a thing that's not legal to use it in war. So it's just a terrible thing. Poisonous gas and everything. So we can be careful in Norway as well, but we don't have to keep all the eyes on sharks and stuff. So I think it's safer, and if you just look away from the cold water, I think it's not as dangerous to do it in Norway. And anyway,
definitely not. Yeah, there's not as much looking over your shoulder here. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we are going into the topic, to go into the details of the different talk a bit about seaweed. We'll start this because I think it's fun to keep a focus on other things than fish, because I guess it's an underutilized resource here in Norway. Some people have tried it, but most people will swim past. And is there a way you think we can introduce seaweed and kelp in a way that makes people interested in testing it on the dinner plate?
Absolutely. Well, so for me, like seaweeds have been actually a really big part of food and cooking over probably the past 10, 12 years for me in restaurants. So seaweeds, I mean, look, they're super fascinating, because if we put it into perspective like this, they're not just seaweeds, but they're sort of the plants and vegetables of the sea. And with seaweeds, they're so versatile, and just like plants and herbs and vegetables, there's many different species that have different and the best ways to use them to get the best out of them. Like for instance, you can have some sautéed, let's say some spinach or bok choy, but you're probably not going to stand there with some rosemary, and you're not going to saute a whole, fry pan full of rosemary and then eat it. And so, but if people were showing people how to stir fry rosemary and eat it, then probably people wouldn't eat so much rosemary. And it's the same with seaweed. So seaweed, it's so versatile. There's so many different species. You can just see by these photos on the screen how many different types of seaweed, and that's just this one photo. But the really super cold and nutrient mineral rich waters here, they produce a lot of incredible different varieties of seaweed. So that makes, so not only is there quite a diverse amount of species, but they're also really good for you and super nutrient dense, a lot of these different seaweeds as well. So there's main three groups I like to break them into. Basically, you got your brown algae, mainly kelps and things. Then you have your red algae and you have your green algae. That's the easiest way to kind of look at it. And they break off into different sort of varietals in all those sort of species lists. So, but you're seeing just in the photo in front of us, we've got something as simple as sugar kelp, which is the big one that looks wrinkly in there, So sugar kelp and other kelps like Atlantic wakame that you have here, also all-weed kelp, they're a really sort of good hearty brown. Think of them like your deeper, bigger sort of hearty vegetables, and then you have your things that are a little bit more fine and delicate, things like dulse, things like truffle seaweed, which is, this super aromatic one that's, hangs off the bladderwrack or knotweed kelp.
Yeah, we call it trøffeltang.
Yes, truffle tongue. Yes, exactly. And then you have on the right in the photo here as well, sea lettuce or Neptune's beard, or gutweed or stringweed, whatever you want to call them. There's many different names for them, or in different places. But basically, with them, how you get the best out of them is it depends on like your end process, what you want to do, and also what you want to make of them. But a simple rule of thumb for some things that I love to do with, for instance, brown seaweeds. Brown seaweeds are really, really incredible roasted and powdered and used as a spice. So when I say used as a spice, now not only just sprinkling a bit of, on some chicken and then grilling it or some fish. Now, mind you, that would be tasty, yes, but there's more ways of getting out of it, So for instance, at the restaurant at the moment, we're using sugar kelp, we're roasting it and powdering it, and it's in two different desserts. We're making a sugar kelp magnum sort of ice cream. And for that, so when you roast the kelp, you get these really super complex sort of dark roasted chocolate, coffee, hazelnut aromas, but with this beautiful sort of salted caramel notes and flavors. And we infuse it into some water and then also into some milk and cream. And then we make a really delicate and beautiful ice cream that tastes just like salted caramel ice cream. So that's one sort of simple thing. We also make a kombucha with it, so with some of the roasted brown kelp as well. We make a kombucha base, so we boil and we make a tea. Now, kombucha doesn't only have to just be a tea. It can be made from, like a tea leaves or something. It can be made from anything. So we make, like, let's say, in essence, though, a tea or a stock from kelp. And then we have a kombucha SCOBY and everything else in there. And then we over ferment it. And then we let it turn into a vinegar. And then, so I have a pure kelp vinegar. So if, if I'm going to do a dish with some fish or some seafood, instead of me, we don't want to use, balsamic vinegar or white wine vinegar. Why should we use white wine vinegar? There's no grapes here in Norway, but kelp vinegar, there's kelp everywhere. So we should be using things that is from the area and from the ocean as well. Now that's the kelp. Then, things like some of the seaweeds are a little bit soft and a little bit more delicate. Things like wakame, even, for example, wakame it's a great, and a lot of you might know it from something as simple as, the good old wakame seaweed salad that you might have at a sushi train or in your miso soup. So that's two just really simple ways and methods of doing it. But there's, then it goes deeper and there's so much more. Chopping up and blanching and cooking seaweeds, and you can make almost have this same thing as you might have with, let's say, some sauteed spinach or something like that. Dependent on which seaweed you use and which, and you can kind of tell, if a good way of how I like to look at it as well, if you pick up a bit of seaweed and you put it in your mouth and you chew on some of it, if it's super tough and stringy, then of course, maybe you're going to need to, it's something that you're going to need to cook a little bit longer. You know what I mean? And that goes the same for some different, you could, for reference, some different seafoods or even some different other vegetables. If you just pick it up and just eat it just as is, look, it might be a bit chewy or something like that. So that's why with some seafoods and also with different vegetables and things. We chop them up and we cut them to get the best out of them. Now, things like you red and aromatic seaweeds, now, even if you want to do something as simple as putting it into, if you want to make something fun, you want to make a fun drink or cocktail at home, infusing some seaweed into a little bit of gin or vodka and letting it sit there, then you could get some good flavor out of it. But myself, I'm not a big drinker. I don't really drink. So for me, it'd be more making a fun soda or, a fresh sort of, even a tea out of it as well. But so think of seaweeds, the way I like to look at it is they're so versatile. And the best way of thinking about it is, if you can do this with a vegetable, why isn't there something that you can do with seaweed to recreate making the same thing? And a lot of things, and one thing that probably a lot of people don't know, seaweeds, they have these amazing different gelling qualities with different types of seaweed. And they actually go into a lot of everyday products, even things like toothpaste, some different toothpaste to a certain aspect have seaweeds in them. So
it's what they call alginate.
Yes, the alginates in it, exactly that comes from bull kelp or big kelp's seaweed, and also from things like agar seaweeds or carrageenans and other bits and pieces. But there's so it's such a versatile thing that can be used in different ways. Even something simple as blanching some seaweed, throwing it in some flour, and then tempura in it, and then serving it with some nice spices to go with some other veg and on top of a little bit of rice. So please feel free to ask as many questions or, as you want about any of it. But, one of the best ways that I like to, with working with seaweeds and things like this, sometimes the best thing, it's all about experimentation. Technically there's no wrong or right way of doing it. Well, there is to a certain extent, but either it's going to taste good or it's not, and sometimes you don't get through the process to find out unless you trial and error. And honestly, there's been a lot of different things I've done with seaweeds and I've gone, you know what, that wasn't so good. And then there's been some things I've done where I didn't think it would turn out so well, and then and then all of a sudden it's incredible. So it's sometimes a trial and error phase is the best thing to do.
Can you eat too much seaweed?
Can you eat too much seaweed? Well, I'll put it into perspective like this as well. It's just about anything. So with just about anything, you can overeat. You can overeat anything. But for instance, if somebody was to overeat and eat 10, 15, 20 kilos of green apples are full of oxalic acid, the same thing that is in the top of rhubarb leaves that's very poisonous and bad for you. And you end up in hospital if you ate 20 kilos of apples. I mean, but if you eat 20 kilos of just about anything or 10 kilos, you'll probably get sick as well. But as a general rule of thumb, if any seaweed is super bitter and tastes really horrible or bad, then it's probably not good for you. But apart from that, almost all seaweeds are edible. It just depends like how palatable it'll be for you. And then another important thing about seaweeds, and this is not just like seaweeds, but also it can relate to shellfish and other things like this. You do also have to be mindful of where you pick and collect things from as well. So, obviously, if you're in an area that's close to, I'm just going to use Oslo for instance, but in Oslo, and, you can see that there's a lot of pipes going into the water. There's a lot of runoff. It's probably not the best idea to eat mussels or shellfish from there because you're going to have a lot of these things in the water. And then that goes the same thing for seaweeds as well. And it's kind of like a farm. If you had, a farm, an urban farm in the middle of the city, but you can see it's getting trash and rubbish and things thrown over it, then probably you're not going to want to eat some spinach from there either. So it is something that you have to be safe and you have to be mindful of where you're doing it. And then one thing that I just realized I haven't actually touched on as well, with doing it, and one of the most important things as well is then sustainability. And now this is something that obviously Martin is helping to work with marine restoration to put it back in. So we wanted people to be excited and interested about seaweeds and seafood and things like this, but there's a process about how to do it and to do it properly so that we can still have for many years to come our generations and families and everybody else to be able to do it. And that's sustainably picking. So with seaweeds, you never just rip seaweeds out from the ecosystem and things like this. They're much like plants. And so seaweeds, they secure themselves mainly with holdfast to rocks and underwater and things. And you want to, and much like a tree, every time we get some apples from the tree, we don't pull the whole tree out, if we did, there'd be no apple trees left anyway. And so sustainably harvest by cut in, or breaking off, using a knife or using some scissors to cut and sustainably harvest. Or sometimes when you have areas that had a really big swell, you might get some fresh seaweed coming up as well. But sustainably harvest so it keeps growing back, because this marine ecosystem thrives off having a healthy sort of kelp and algae system wherever it is.
Yeah, I can also elaborate on the season for the different seaweeds. There's also like it's a seasonal growth as well. So during the winter, they are often you won't see as much, and they will grow into create new spores and be, let's say that they will be most clean. So if you're seeing kelp, like sugar kelp late in the season, it will have all sorts of growth on them, maybe some barnacles. It's not the product is not as clean as it would be during the spring, and I'm sure there's different season for different types of kelp as well.
Absolutely. A lot of this, you're right. Really, different species do thrive in different areas. Red algae, generally, a lot of the red algae do a lot better in winter, and they're at their best in winter. Then they sort of die off in the heat a little bit. But then, that doesn't work all the same with some kelps. So some kelps and other seaweeds love the spring and summer, but then quite a few die off in the winter. But but it is important, and it's just about kind of like how we like to pick and eat different sort of vegetables and things and stuff like this. It's important to know as much information about what we're picking and selecting, so we can pick it at the best stage, so it's best for us and the environment and everybody else.
Sure. I see that Sigurd has asked a question about any negative effects with consuming seaweed. We have been talking a little bit about it, but it could be nice to just mention that the stortare, the big kelp, it lives typically the deepest. They might be there might be a bit of heavy metals in them. So the smaller they are, it's often better, and so probably avoid the biggest types of kelp and not overeat. And if you're eating, if you're on heart medicine, for example, like blood thinners, you should not eat too much of the especially the brown algae. I think it might some of them has a lot of vitamin K, and it can affect the medicine or the treatment. So read up if you're having like a health problems with your health. Just read up so you're not doing anything terribly wrong. I also heard that seaweed in general is very nutritious compared to many of the vegetables we have on shore, and some of them really are around 8 times as much. Is that right? I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them, 3 or 4 times more mineral and nutrient dense than veg, some fruits and things and stuff like this. One really simple one, for example, that is everywhere around the coastline here is and it's in the rack family of brown algae, and it's called channeled rack, and it looks like these tiny little like fingers and seaweed, and that goes around everywhere. And it's full of saturated fats and nutrients and minerals and everything. And but and also and what Sigurd said, it depends where you get these things as well. You know what I mean? And because quite a few seaweeds, a lot of seaweeds are really, really fast growing. Of course, in the colder waters, they grow a bit slower, but it's important to be mindful where you're picking and harvesting any seaweeds from, like you would do with seafood as well.
Yeah. I think we have we have covered a bit about the seaweed. We might get so Susanne is also mentioning that fingertare is I'm not sure of the English name, but it's the one with the fingers.
Yeah, oid kelp or fingertare. Yes.
Yeah. So she said that might have high levels of unorganic arsenic, which can cause cancer. There's and also high level of iodine, which is what you eating. So maybe if there's a nuclear war, then it's probably good to eat a little bit more of the seaweed, but you shouldn't overeat because it's not good for you. So a little bit, I guess that's the general advice. So don't go on a seaweed diet completely.
No. What? Yeah.
Blæretang. Do you know what it is?
Which one? Sorry.
Blæretang. It's the brown algae with the small bubbles.
Yes, yeah, it's knotweed kelp or bladderwrack. It's in the bladderwracks. Yeah.
Sonia is asking for an example how to prepare that kind of algae.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great question. Actually, for example, so you can actually see, well, in the photo in front of us, there's I've got some trays because I was actually picking and harvesting them for the restaurant. So in the middle, so some of the bladderwrack there, quite a bit of it, I roasted it and turned it into a beautiful powder and spice. Then the one in the middle that has some of the truffle tang on it, which is the knotweed kelp or bladder kelp. So this one, I actually chopped it up, blanched it, and I made it into a puree. And then I actually used that puree in a butter with some sea urchins, and we put that on our sourdough. Then on the bladder kelp as well. So when it shoots and gets tiny little new growth, it has all these tiny little shoots that almost look like little capers. And I pick off heaps of those capers and I salt them and pickle them. And actually I call them kelpers because they're kind of like little kelp capers. And then I turn them into capers. And then all the rest, the offcuts and everything, I roast and dry it and just turn it into a spice. And that I use in many things. So the spice, so I even, in sourdough I'm making it at the restaurant, I make like a really rich kelp and sort of from this bladder seaweed, bladder kelp. I make like a rich tea, and then I use that water in my sourdough to give it a little bit more depth and aroma. And then also to bring this beautiful color out. And I put a little bit of rye and white flour and a little bit of spelt in there, and it makes a really, really super tasty sourdough. So many different methods and ways. But if anyone has like a specific question on things like this after, just fire it away, and I'm always happy to help out with an idea or even a recipe or something like this. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So and Sigurd is asking, what is the belle of the ball when it comes to seaweed in Norway? Which are the best, both regarding nutrient content and waste? So I guess basically your favorite, which is also as nutrient as possible. Good for you.
It's hard because I have two favorite. For me, I really love big kelps. Big kelps for me. But when I say big, I mean like things like sugar kelp and winged kelp or Atlantic wakame. But it's some of the smaller and more insignificant ones that are the heavy hitters. Like, so the one that's in the third tray here that looks the smallest, channeled rack. For me, that is one of the tastiest. It's really sort of nice. It's got a really nice bite to it. You can take it off the rocks and eat it as is.
But like sagtang. I think that's the name of it in Norwegian. It's hard to tell. The picture is small, but I think it's it has some small spikes on it, right?
Yeah, it's more like feathery. It's called channeled rack. It's in the racks. In the racks there's bladder rack, then there's toothed rack, then there's knotted rack, and then you have Arctic channeled rack, and then there's a couple more. But it's a little bit more fine, and it's one of the ones that grows higher up on the intertidal zone. So if you look up, it's a channeled rack, but it grows up a little bit higher. And for me, this is super, super tasty. It's quite nutty. You can stir fry it. You can blanch it. I pickle it, and we use it on a wood-fired little waffle that we put smoked fish on and stuff. So yeah, super, super versatile, and it's one of the most nutrient rich and dense ones as well.
I shared a link so if people want to look at see how it looks. I found a link, so it's in the chat.
Nice. Oh, that was fast. Great work.
So, and I think we'll hop on to the next. We have also a question about heart shells, which might be. Have you any experience with the heart shell?
Heart shells?
Heart shell. It's a hjerteskjell in Norwegian. It's a small white mussels that lives basically on the beach.
Do you mean limpets?
No, limpets are they are the Chinese hats, but it's a mussel in itself, and it looks kind of like a heart if you're having a bit of an imagination. I'm not sure if it's the
Yeah, I might need to just
uh,
see a
yeah
photo of what it is, hutch.
yeah
Yeah, if I saw a photo, I'd probably not. Well, hopefully no.
yeah.
But yeah,
I can send I can find a picture, but we'll hop on to the next slide now. We'll talk a bit about quality and preservation of fish. So if you just let the ball roll like you usually do.
yeah. um, Okay, so look, quality and preservation of fish, a quick dispatch. So that means, the faster you dispatch your fish, when you catch it, the better it's going to be, the muscles and the final quality of the fish. And one of the best ways of trying to dispatch it quick is trying to get a really good shot on it first. So it's better for you to take your time and to go slow and get a really good shot to try and take it out properly, rather than getting a rush shot and you can't, and then you spend about 30 minutes fighting it, and then you finally end up dispatching and killing it. Then bled out. So, this doesn't happen often enough, I think. And look, some species of fish, it's more important. And of course, look, and I'll be honest, it's in warmer waters, it's very important to try and do it as fast as possible. But bleeding out fish, it's best, once you've got your fish, I mean, the best method, you get it to yourself, and then, you want to sort of brain spike it with a knife and really get in there so you can humanely kill it as fast as possible. And then it's just as simple as getting the knife and putting it up in the gills and just giving a good kind of cut, and just to release that blood so you get a cleaner. And this can have a really serious impact on the quality on color of your fish when you cut it open and use it later. So if you want to use it eating it raw and things and stuff like this, which when you're catching fresh fish, it's one of the most incredible things to do, is being able to have beautiful fresh raw fish. And the quicker and better you dispatch that and you bleed it out, then the better quality. And as much as possible, if you can, ikijimi, which is a Japanese method of really dispatching a fish really fast to get the best out of it and to get the best muscle and texture out of the flesh. Obviously, if you're in the water, that the only fast way to do it when you're quickly in the water is to brain spike it as fast and good as possible. But if you're out in the water and you have the time and you can do it, cutting off the tail at the bottom of where the spine is, you get like a long thing like a coat hanger or something like this, or a piece of wire, and you push it all the way out the spine, and it just severs all the central nervous cord and spines, and then it just completely relaxes the fish, and you get a better muscle quality and out of the fish when you cook it. Now, next one is a thing that, I'll be honest, it's a bit more important everywhere I've been diving. And because sometimes we're going out diving for quite a longer time because it's warmer waters. But if that's the case, then we need to try and get fish onto a boat or into ice as soon as possible. Realistically, like when you're in warmer waters, if you want to have the best texture and flavor and everything of fish, you want to try and get that fish into ice as soon as possible. If you can, absolutely at least half an hour would be ideal. Obviously that doesn't always happen, but just so you can start cooling the fish down and bringing the body temperature down so you can get better quality out of the fillets and the flesh. It's lucky here, the water is already, is like an ice slurry already. It's already pretty cold. So that definitely helps, but still, it's still good to get the fish still even cooling down even faster. 0 to 2 degrees really is ideal to have it really cool and to keep it the best temperature. Aging fish is another one, and that's a method that's after you catch it and you have it on ice, and look, when you get a fish, you can keep it on ice, and even with the guts in and everything on ice for a day or a couple of days if you need to. And some fish, to be honest, are even better with and like this. It just depends on the species. But aging it is more when you put it into the fridge or put it in an area to sort of cool and calm down and relax, almost like you might with a piece of meat. But the most important thing with that is, and of course, this is something with when you're in a warmer place is a little bit more important. But because of the water quality and the water temperature is very different. But when you take the fish out of the water, you fillet it. The best thing is to fillet it dry. And when I say dry, it just means not introducing any water from a tap into that when you're washing it, because when you think about it, you take the fish from the ocean and it's in salt water and has all these minerals and bacteria and everything that's in it. But then once you start washing it with fresh water, God knows what's actually in the taps and water that, what you're washing with. So the minute you start putting water onto that fresh fish that you've caught, then that's when you start to speed up the decaying process, and it's going to start going faster and faster. So the best thing is to break it down and keep it as dry and away from fresh water as much as possible, and then put it in a place where it has enough space to breathe. Now, this is a super common mistake everywhere when storing fish, not just fish, but meat and other things as well. Fish it's a muscle, basically. Okay, so it needs to breathe. If you either it needs to not breathe at all, so be fully cryovac and vacuum sealed, so there is no air, or it needs to have enough air circulation around it to be able to breathe properly, so it doesn't start sweating and going musty and going bad. And aging is that part of it, where you could hang it up and give it a week or two or even longer, and let it age so you can get better, the best quality out of it. And that some of it, sometimes it can drop the moisture content of it and enrich the fat levels, or just let it cool and let all the muscles relax as well. And that goes the same for storage. So when you catch a fish as well, you don't want to put it in a container and then cover that container with Glad wrap and then put it in the fridge, because once you start doing that, then that gets the air circulates and it gets stale, and then you'll notice your fish will go off and deteriorate twice as fast as if you'd left it uncovered. So the best method is to give it as much space and air to breathe. And even if that's as simple as putting a tea towel under it and putting a tea towel over it or something like that, that's fine as well. Because you're not always going to have enough room to hang a big fish. And even if it's not the whole fish, even if it's fillets, it's the same thing. Don't Glad wrap it and cover it with plastic and in a plastic container that can't breathe, because it'll start sweating and going bad. Preservation methods. Preservation methods is many of them, and obviously it's already very big in many areas here in Norway and Lofoten. And for me, very exciting, with all the stockfish racks around here. And so it's really important, interesting process everywhere in the world. But preservation, so many methods, salting and curing, smoking, freezing, drying, all those methods. But one thing that I think that's really interesting and that not enough people do is, everybody goes hunting, or not everybody goes hunting, but people go hunting, or they get things from shops. They make salami, they make things like prosciutto, they do all these things. But mainly it's always done just with meat. You can do all those same things with seafood as well. You can make, fish salami, you can make fish prosciutto, all these sorts of things, using the same things, salting and preservation methods with doing it. And I know later in the season and things like this, we're going to be doing some things with Martin and Frivannsliv. We're going to probably do some sort of little workshop or things, explaining and showing some more information about how and to do these. But it's something, and something even as simple as just smoked herring. That's a very simple one, like the bokling in Norway. But we made a whole bunch of fresh stuff at work, which is this little photo in the image at the top of it. But fish and seafood salami, there's no reason why it can't. If it can be done with meat and other things, why can't you do it with fish and seafood? And you can. And that goes the same for cooking techniques and methods as well. And sometimes the cooking and techniques and methods is just to get the best thing out of each fish. So for instance, on the right, you'll see this is a little a dish that I do at work, and then I serve with a sauce at the restaurant. And then this is just a little halibut fillet that I cook on one side in the wood fire oven till it's just cooked, and I bring it to about 50 degrees, and then I take it off and let it rest. And then I have a big chunk like this, and I carve it just like a steak. And where now you see it looks like it's opaque, it looks almost like it's a little bit raw, but you touch it and it completely flakes apart and it's completely perfectly cooked. So that goes for the cooking techniques and methods. And then with it, then I've got a just lightly sort of slow cooked and then crumbed halibut sort of wing or collar in a little bit of sour milk and just crumbed with some old sourdough breadcrumbs, and that's, once again, the cooking techniques or methods to get the best out of the fish, so we waste less and we have more meals.
Epic. It looks very, very good. So yeah, and I really want to go. Ola asks if is it the best to gut the fish right away after dispatching it in the water, or wait until you get out of the water? Any difference?
Yes, no, that's a very good question. It depends how fast you're going to be able to put the fish away and store it properly. So if you're going to gut the fish in the water, but then you're going to stay in the water for another hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you're going to get out, and then the fish is going to be kind of in an esky with maybe a little bit of ice, but not enough ice, and then the fish is going to, then it's going to be another 6 hours, 7 hours until you finally store the fish properly. Then I would say then to not gut the fish right away. But then the most important thing is to make sure the temperature is cooling down. Because once you start, while the fish is cold and it's on ice or it has the guts and things in it, it's still contained. Everything is still contained. But once you open it and you cut it and you start gutting it, then that's when you introduce any chances of the fish to start. That's when the decaying process starts going down. And when I say decaying, I don't want it to sound scary, because it's not, because you have quite a long shelf life. But it still means, that means once you gut it, it's gutted. There's no going back, and that still is going to be a bit longer. Now, if you have, for me, if I have a fish and it comes and I get it and put it on ice, and this is what a lot of fishermen would do when they catch and have fresh fish in Australia and a lot of other places. They'll keep it on ice, cool and chilled for as long as possible, sometimes 2-3 days or more, if on ice with guts and everything inside, because everything's calm and it's there. And then they'll gut it and then scale it, and then that's when the fish might go home with somebody, or then it has another, let's say, 6 to 7, 8 days from that period. So realistically, in my opinion, it's best to leave the guts in it and everything until it can be done properly and on ice and into the best process to get it stored correctly.
I think that covers it.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
How do you deal with this? We have some different species we'll go through and just get how you would probably with the sea urchin open it, and what will you do with it from you get it from like a live sea urchin to its on the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, sea urchins, it's Norway, obviously, it has a problem with sea urchins eating kelp and destroying ecosystems. And it's not just there, in many other countries as well. In Melbourne, for instance, where I was living and working before, I would take half the restaurant staff and we'd go diving and collect anywhere from 100 to 200 sea urchins every couple of days. But from getting a sea urchin, sea urchin is one of the most prime suspects. It's the greatest thing that you can take out because it's the fastest, easiest meal you can get from diving. So you get it out. There's the two simplest ways. Either you put a spoon in backwards and you crack it open like that, and then you throw it out and you throw out as much of the guts and other things as possible. Then you can rinse it out with a little bit of water, and then realistically you can just eat and go straight away. Or on some hot sourdough with a little bit of butter, into a pasta, into a salad, or blend it up into sauces and dressing. Another easy way, which I prefer, and with how to open them, is to use scissors, and then you open it like this and you move it around and you slowly open it around from the top and you make like a nice circle, because then this way you can throw out all the guts and you can do it in one go like this. And then most of the time, if you can put a little bit more water and rinse it, and then you have all the roe and everything inside. And then sometimes, if it's like that, then I might chop up some fresh veg and other things and stuff like that, put it all back in the sea urchin, and then you have like a fun little sort of almost like sushi poke bowl all back inside of your sea urchin. And then, of course, once you've cleaned your sea urchins, they can go into so many different things. Like I have little candle sea urchin holders sitting all everywhere around my house. But yeah, look, they're these tiny little fun hedgehogs of the sea. They're so delicious, nutritious, and you can do so much with them. So, and the more people that get out there and eat them, then the better it is for the environment, and there's going to be some delicious food in everybody's bellies as well.
Yeah, there's a company in Norway called Urchinomics. They do farming. They do farm the sea urchins in a way. They collect it's called drøbakskråkebolle. It's the smaller dark ones that you have up north.
Yep, the green ones. Yeah.
Yeah, they collect them and put them in a in a tub full of kelp and stuff to eat, and keep them for a few weeks, and then they harvest it when the roe is at the largest, and then they open them up and take out the roe and can sell it from between 5,000 to 7,000 NOK per kilo. So it's really highly regarded, and most free divers typically swim by them. I think it's fun to open them up and eat it straight from the sea, maybe with a bit of soy sauce or lemon. Probably that it's some of the easiest way to do it. See, Susanne said that she tried to barbecue the gonad once, and it was really good.
I can imagine. I can imagine. It sounds tasty. Absolutely.
Yeah, she don't think it would be chef approved. Usually, I don't hear about it be. I only hear about it being raw. So she says.
No, not at all. It's definitely no. Honestly, cooked into sauces. I've turned it into sea urchin pate before. I've cooked it and it's gone into like from sauces and curries. Not just that. I actually have I have back in Australia. I have a kelp soy sauce business, and we did a limited release one year, and we did for which we did only for a couple of times because it took so much effort. But we did a sea urchin hot sauce, and in the sea urchin hot sauce, it was cooked sea urchin with some chili peppers and onions and garlic and other bits and pieces. And it was like this tiny little bottle, and it had like about 15 sea urchins in one little bottle that was 60, 70 mils. So yeah, absolutely. Sounds delicious.
Yeah, and on Lil's asked if it's there's a season for sea urchins. You see that you'll find the sea urchins all year round, but there will be seasons for the roe to grow inside the sea urchin.
Yeah, and it can be quite it can be really quite sporadic and different compared to the area, because sometimes you can have an area and generally an area that has more algae and kelps and seaweeds, generally you'll have fatter and fuller gonads. And then areas that you have and it's more barren, a lot of the time you'll open them and there'll be nothing inside.
Yeah, but I guess they are a bit more like humans that way. And I've been collecting like two right beside each other, and one is full and the other is empty. So it's very random. Some kids are born in the summer, some are in the winter. So I guess it's a bit of a bingo to find out to find the right time to harvest them. If you find an area where there's lots of them, it's okay to just go mad and pick many of them. It's they are a plague, especially up north now. It's really a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Suzanne was just saying, yes, you definitely can make a sort of fish sauce with them, 100%. You know, like a garum / fish sauce. Absolutely, yeah. You know, you just got to obviously make sure you have enough salt content in it. So, you know, if it's fermenting or, you know, aging, so it lasts and keeps it for a good time. But general rule of thumb, if you're doing it as a sort of fish sauce like that, if you use about 15% salt to it, then it'll be fine. But yeah, definitely, you definitely can.
Yeah, Susanne found the English name of the heart hjerteskjell. See it's cockles.
Oh, cockles! Yeah, cockles. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the question was, would you like I would like some tip about cockles, how to bring them safe home and preparations in the kitchen. It's a question from Charlotte.
Oh, sorry. What the question was? How to what? Sorry.
How to bring them safe home and how to prepare them in the kitchen.
Yeah, cockles. Well, I mean, cockles and clams and things like that. Look, bringing them back and home, obviously keeping them as cool and close to the sort of environment that they've come from, whether that's even keeping them in a little bit of fresh water or just keeping them cool and cold. Honestly, it's a lot easier here because it's a lot colder and cooler, and that's what they're used to. In Australia, when you take pippies or clams and things out of the water there, if you don't store them properly, then they're open and dead in a couple of hours. You know what I mean? So I got some big mahogany clams the other day, and they stayed alive for 3 days outside in a little foam box that I had here in the cold. But but with them, obviously, clams and cockles and things like that, you're getting them out of a sandy area. So I mean, the best thing is to purge them, so you get them in a bit of water. So you put a bit of fresh water into them, and then they sort of open up and they spit out all this sand. So you can kind of, make them less gritty. So when you're going to cook them, and then, the possibilities are endless with cooking them, steaming them in pastas, in sauces, roasting them, or, in a braise or something like this, in soup. So yeah, run wild.
That's good. Here's a picture of the common walk. In Norwegian, it's kongsnegl.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
Every year I'm teaching a freediving course up in Steigen at Naustholmen, and one of the low-hanging fruits for the course participants to go foraging or spearfishing is to pick some of these. And we have tried a couple of different recipes for them, and it's always a lot of fun to see the reaction from the people trying them, because they're typically skeptical at the beginning, and they find out that it tastes really delicious.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
how would you go ahead with if you have a bucket of these?
Oh, absolutely. Well, look, for these, I mean, they're such a popular seafood all across Europe and all across Asia. Really, really big. And I remember one of the simplest and easiest, tastiest things I had with this many years ago. I was in the Philippines and I was diving spearfishing there, and we got heaps, but we went to this island and we got given a bag of steamed whelks like this, like snails. They gave us a bag of it steamed and a little bottle of coconut vinegar, and we just took it out and we, with a little stick, took it out, dipped it in coconut vinegar and ate it just as is, and it was delicious, and it was just steamed in seawater. But for me, there's so many different methods. So lightly steaming first and then grilling them, barbecuing them over the fire. And then another method that I love to do, and this is actually something that I did in China many years ago when I was running, one of the restaurants we had that I was running was this sort of wood fire Italian sort of restaurant. And then we used to get heaps of these snails in, and we made sort of like a sea snail sort of bolognese. So we would steam them, take them all out, chop them up in pieces, and we made this super rich snail sort of bolognese that we put. But when I say bolognese, there was only sea snails in it. There was nothing else. But, tomatoes and garlic and all those other sorts of things. So a super fun seafood pasta with just that. Then, taking them out and then really nice fried and buttered and grilled and then dipped into sauces. So, and then another fun way is taking them out, getting a skewer and then skewering them between some spring onions and some other veggies, and then just grilling them and eating them like that. So, I mean, realistically, I think there's such a versatile animal. And for me, I actually prefer sea snails better than things like abalone. Abalone, it's an amazing, yes, it tastes great, but really it's this super tough muscle. If you don't cook it perfectly, then it's horrible. Sea snails are super versatile and you can do so many things with them.
Yeah, you have the Annelil is asking about the shellfish, if they are safe to eat. So in general, we have at Mattilsynet, they have like a site where you can check, where you can check the quality of the blue mussels, and it's the same rule will be for the cockles.
Absolutely. And one interesting thing about that, actually, though, is quite different. So where the cockles and clams and mussels, they're sort of filter feeders, and they're recycling this water in and out. It's different from sea urchins. That doesn't mean that you want to try and go and eat sea urchins from a not safe area, but sea urchins are even more safe because then they don't have the same thing where they're filtering in and out the seawater, and because what you're eating is just the gonads, which has no interaction with that sort of thing. Which mussels.
It's also the same with the common whelk, because it's not a filter feeder either. It's just walking around on the bottom of the sea eating a fish that's died or whatever. It's fine. So it's not following the same rules as the blue mussels. But for filter feeders, I would follow the Mattilsynet, the webpage there. They have some different measuring stations, and at some places it's quite far apart from each measuring station. And if you want to be like as safe as possible, you pick as close to one of the measuring stations as possible. And if not, try one or two seashells one day, and if you feel nothing, and you can eat more the day after.
Yeah,
And
agree.
if there's like a red warning in one area, and there's a green one in another one, you should be careful, because some of these the toxins in the seashells is something that you really not want to mess around with. It's the worst one is a nerve poison. That's it's not no fun at all. So be careful with the seashells, especially when you're eating a lot at the same time. Susanne is asking about a question about the Commonwealth. Do you toss away the upper column or leave it?
The what? Sorry.
The upper column. I think it's kind of like the nail at the end of the on the end of
The
the
nail that closes off the shell. Yes, I just toss it away.
probably. Yeah, and they also have guts on the other end of the.
Yeah. The guts actually, in fact, the guts are actually quite useful in quite a few restaurants. I've turned in sea snails and abalones and limpets. I've actually turned it into sauces and emulsions like mayonnaises, and I've actually turned the guts into things like a fish sauce as well. So actually, the guts are not bad. And can be used in things, whereas the guts from some other things I wouldn't use so much, but the guts from abalones, things like whelks and snails, big, what do you call them? We call them, but really, really big conch and things and stuff like that. I would always use the guts from them in sauces or fish sauces and stuff like that.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, Susanne confirms that it's the flat bit is the upper column.
Oh, okay, yeah, the little flat thing. Yeah, it's like their little door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you throw them away.
Yeah, well, throw them away, or you can make it into a necklace, maybe if you want, or
A nice dress.
Yeah.
Mackerel. In
Also,
Norway, most fishermen I've met or people that's involved in fishing is like thinking of this as just a bait fish to cut up and put into crab pots and stuff like that. But I've had some truly magical experiences with mackerel when it's prepared in the right way.
absolutely, it's mackerel. It's a fatty, oily fish. What does fat mean? Fat means flavor. So that means it just depends what you do with it. But because it's a fatty, oily fish like that, if you cook it too much, then it would just dry out as well, because the oils would just drain out of this, because it's such a delicate fish as well. Mackerel, really, it's incredible raw or lightly seared, lightly grilled, or smoked, amazing, salted, and then just eaten raw, like a sort of, like a gravlax sort of style. But yeah, and it's an amazing, super tasty fish. And honestly, it's an expensive fish in all across Asia, and in Australia, and I'm sure in other parts of Europe as well.
Yeah, I visited Japan, and they asked where we were from, and we said Norway, and I was expecting them to say, "Oh, Norwegian salmon," but it was actually, "Oh, we have a lot of Norwegian mackerel, and it's the best fish in the world."
Yeah,
And
it's a super tasty fish. Absolutely.
there was a great chef on one of the places we had a course, and he served it with a raw in kind of a marinade, and
Yeah,
let it stay there overnight, and it was the best thing I've ever had. I've had some good seafood, but that was incredible.
absolutely. If like a good little mackerel like that, when it's fresh, it's like a tiny tuna. In essence, really, it is. It's like a tiny tuna. And if for me, if I was going to have mackerel most of the time, I wouldn't cook it. I would have it raw. I would have it lightly seared, just like that, and it's epic.
Sounds good. Here you have the place Rødspette. It has kind of a bad rumor in Norway because of it's what you get like at all the roadside restaurants. You get them either filled with or just fried in butter. What would
Yeah.
you do?
I mean, the possibilities are endless with place. I mean, place, like flounder, it's a flatfish. It really is amazing. It's amazing fish and chips. It's amazing grilled. It's amazing smoked. It's cut it from the top, take out the spine bones, stuff it. Put rice and things in it. Slow cook. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And And then not only to mention, as far as fish goes, it's probably one of the easiest fish to hunt because it just sits there and goes, you know what I mean? And it doesn't do anything, like you can almost pick it up with your hand, and it's the flesh is incredible, white, sweet, flaky flesh. I think for anyone, if anyone is only getting into fish and wants to start trialing more fish, it's one of the first and best fish you can start eating because it's the most simple, but it's also most delicate and most tastiest fish as well. And you can do so many things with it,
Sure. Annelil asks about the mackerel. Does it need to be treated before it can be eaten raw?
No, not at all. Absolutely. You can take the fillet off, start eating it straight away. Absolutely.
So there's no risk of parasites or stuff like that.
No, not
the general rule for sushi, as far as I know, is just it has to be to freeze it first and then serve it. But it's not like that, right?
No, not at all. I mean, you freeze mackerel, and then I personally I would say if you freeze mackerel, I wouldn't really want to eat it. You could eat it raw afterwards, but for me to freeze mackerel, it's kind of like that's sacrilegious. You don't do that. If you have a fresh mackerel, you cut it up, eat it then and there. If you catch the mackerel, get the mackerel in a greasy, horrible, dirty looking water, well, then maybe I wouldn't be taking the mackerel at all. But mackerel is such a small fish, a fast growing fish. That's why it's such a sustainable fish. It's delicious and amazing to eat raw just as is like that. Absolutely.
Is there a fish that you would freeze before eating raw?
For me, it depends where and what water maybe you get it from. But realistically, I have never, once frozen a fish in Australia, in many other tropical islands ever, to be able to eat it raw. If the fish comes from an area that's clean and safe, and as long as you yourself don't have any allergies or things, dietaries that it would affect your body, then no, absolutely. There's a big difference cutting up and eating, a fish that's fresh as opposed to frozen and then thawed. The flavor profiles are completely different. And then not only that, like one of the things for me as well, not just, for instance, sashimi with a bit of soy sauce, but one of my favorite things to do with fish in the world, whenever I go diving and fishing, that I always make no matter what, is ceviche. And I love ceviche. And there's so many different variations and methods and ways of doing it. So ceviche is basically fish that's chopped up raw and it's cured and it's cooked in an acid. And the acid normally being lime or lemon. That being said, you can use grapefruit, you can use vinegar, you can use something that's sour and has enough acid to cook it. And then you throw lots of other fresh things in and it's an instant meal. When I'm out with friends, I love when I catch fish. This is one of my go-to things. I always have a big bowl with chopped up raw fish, and it might be with coconut water and lots of fresh herbs and other things, sweet potato in it. Or one day I might have chopped up other raw fresh veggies and herbs and stuff in it. But ceviche is my go-to dish. And to be honest, a fish like flounder or plaice is incredible with ceviche. It's amazing.
Jonas is asking about is saying that he's skeptical about eating raw fish because he's afraid for kveis. It's a parasite that's common in Norway, especially for the species that grows slow and becomes larger and lives in deeper waters, like brosme or lange. It's like there's some species that where it's known to be a lot of them. It's like a small parasite, but I would guess
which fish specifically?
Lingcod, and I'm not sure of the other one.
Lingcod is generally a fish that's better cooked anyways. As like my go-to things with lingcod we have in Australia as well. A couple different species, maybe not the exact same one, but they're pretty similar. Lingcod is a fish that lingcod is one of the most popular fish and chips fish in Australia. Lingcod and flake. So that's a fish I would cook anyways. But by no means I'm saying if somebody feels safer to freeze it, then like absolutely by all means, and it's important to look it up from where it is and to be safe and sure. And only to do it if you want. You shouldn't feel pressured or to have to do something just because somebody else says it. You have to be feeling comfortable and that you want to do it. And yeah, but of course, any questions like this, I think at any stage you can always ask, anyone from from Frivannsliv, Martin, myself, or anyone else, and we would always be happy to respond. And for instance, if anyone ever wants to reach out on Instagram or anything like this and has any questions about this or other recipes or fish, by all means, reach out whenever you want.
That's a good point. It's nice to have someone like Susanne here. She's really good with the translations for me here. I was talking about the parasite, and it's in English. It's anisakis.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but I would guess that in general, it's not a big problem for fish that grows quickly, and yeah, that's quite young. So probably not eat the biggest halibut or something like that. I don't know. Let's go on to the next one. Scallops. We'll hop over that because we have a couple of recipes coming. Halibut. It's a popular fish for spear fishermen in Norway, especially up north. And during the season, there's 2 seasons for hunting halibut. It's in the spring and in the fall. I'll go into details about the way of hunting the different species and stuff like that at the next the webinar that's in the end of the month. Tomorrow I'll have a webinar about free diving, the basics of free diving. Go ahead.
Sorry, about halibut?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, halibut for me is a super interesting, incredible fish. I have obviously used a lot of halibut in other places. I've used it in Asia and other places. Obviously, there's nowhere else really in the world that has as big and amazing halibut as Norway with the cold waters and everything like this. But super versatile fish. And when you have a fish that is this big like this, it's incredible because it gives you the opportunity to cut them into different sections and cutlets and things and stuff like this and use it like a piece of meat. So for me, one of the greatest things to do is with a big fish like this and halibut is to, rather than cut it, everybody loves to cut off the fillets and then they throw away the bones and everything like this. But if you think about it, if you eat a steak, let's say lamb cutlets or a ribeye, why is it so tasty and juicy? Because you grill it and barbecue it on the bone and you leave it on the bone. And because it's on the bone, it keeps more flavor in it. It's more juicy. So what I would say is if you get a big fish like this, or even, a lot of smaller ones, stuff like this, rather than only just cutting off the fillets and then throwing away the bones and everything like this, get yourself a super sharp bread knife or a hacksaw and then cut through the bones and make yourself some beautiful cutlets and things like this. And then grill it and cook it on the bone or roast it in the oven. And then it's just kind of like as if you want to roast a lamb leg or chicken and things on the bone, Why are they so tasty and juicy? Because you cook it on the bone. That's Flavor Nation right there. So what I would say is if you get a big fish and things like this, take your time, slow down. Don't just cut the fillets off as fastest way possible you can. Try to break it into nicer pieces and sections. And then you're going to find it's going to be a lot more fun because you can do more with it. And it's going to look cool and it's going to taste delicious as well.
Sure. Good advice. Now we are into the parts of the fish.
Yeah.
Before answering that, we'll go through the question of Charlotte. She's asking about the heavy metals in sizes like on the pic. Picture from above is for spear fishing. We have both a minimum size and also a maximum size for halibut. So it's 84 centimeters minimum and 2 meters maximum. In general, the quality of the meat is better on the smaller individuals. It's the older one gets the more offspring, of course, and also they have a higher level of heavy metals in them. So eating too much heavy metals is of course not good for you. So probably not eat large halibut for dinner every day. And so yeah, it's the same as about the question around the seaweed and kelp, like we talked about earlier. We should avoid overeating like specific parts of the animals, and the bigger the large halibut, they are also something we, especially for people that is exposed, like for example pregnant women or others that's afraid of having heightened levels of heavy metals. There's a risk of that, eating large fish and old fish.
And I think that goes for everything in moderation, and it's good to have a bit of diversity with what you eat, anyways, with what you eat and how you eat.
Yeah, this is a cod roe. It's like rogn. What do you like to? How would you like to prepare this? This is a part of the fish that's typically thrown away.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, in essence, it's such a sad thing, because if you think about it, it's just caviar. This is just caviar inside the sack, and everywhere around the world, caviar is this super expensive, sacred thing. You know what I mean? But this, in essence, is just caviar from another fish. So there's so many different things that you can do with it. You know, whereas you could just do something as simple as actually taking it out and salting it with 2% salt to the amount of what you have, and then put it in a little jar, and then you have some caviar. Put it on some bread, put it on some toast, or whatever you want to do. You could smoke it, blend it, turn it into sauces. But I also like to do things like, if you have some of it and you don't know exactly what you want to do with it right then and there, salt it, and then you can dry it, and then later you might make a pasta or make a bit of sauce. You can grate it on top of something, and then get the best out of it. And that, in other countries, like places like Italy, is called bottega, where it's, a sacred thing that they put on lots of, pastas and things. Whereas if they were to do a seafood pasta, they probably wouldn't put a cheese on it. They would put some bottega, which is like smoked and salted and dried mullet roe, And realistically, cod roe is a lot more tasty than mullet roe, really. So yeah, it's an underutilized thing. That being said, I know it's quite big. Like smoked cod roe and things is quite big in Norway. I don't know how realistically how popular it actually is and how much people eat it and use it, but we use it in quite a few things on the menu, even just blending it into things like a sauce. So for instance, making a mayonnaise, you could have some of this in the fridge that could be salted and cured, and then you could chop some up in pieces, put it in the blender, and then instead of using eggs in a mayonnaise, you could turn this into a mayonnaise using this as a binder. Some of this cod roe with some mayonnaise, with some mustard, a little bit of vinegar, and then you emulsify oil in, and then you have a beautiful cod roe mayonnaise. You know what I mean? So the options are endless.
I'll definitely try creating a mayonnaise next time. Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we have yeah.
Then you could use that mayonnaise in something as simple as a potato salad. Boom.
Sure. And there's also a roe in the scallops. It's also, you can use it for all of the same things as the cod roe, right?
Absolutely. It's for me, it's quite sad that sometimes these things get thrown away, because all it is throwing away some of your meal and food, and you spend time getting it, then you throw it in the bin. It's such a waste of time.
Yeah. One of the courses we made, we made scallops, and we created the sauce with the roe, and it's so good. So it's definitely underutilized resource there. Susanne is asking about what's the roe/salt ratio.
If you're going to cure it, it depends what you're doing it for. But like a good rule of thumb, if you want to just do it and you don't want it to be too salty, then I would always go something like 60-40. So about, let's say you could do 60% salt and then 40% sugar with it, so you can have a really nice balance. Or if you don't want to have that sugar, then I would just salt it, for instance, overnight, or maybe for a couple of days at the most, and then wash it off and let it dry. And then that salt will sort of go through it. So it just depends what your final thing that you want to do with it. Because obviously if you just completely soak it in salt, then it's going to be super salty. You know what I mean? So you need to have the balance of how long you salt it or how much you salt it with is going to make it as salty as it is. But if you're going to do something really simple, you could just go something like 5% of the weight of whatever it is. So if it weighs a kilo, you do plus 5% of that. And that would be good, so it doesn't go over salty or something.
Good. On to the next underutilized resource.
Cod heads, yes, absolutely. And, not just cod heads, like fish heads in general. It's a shame, fish heads in general are always and a lot of time wasted. And you go to lots of other countries, and it's it's an important food staple to be used. Around the cod head, there's a lot of super fatty gelatinous material, and you got a lot of delicious parts of meat on it. Something as simple as on the cod, you have the in Spain they call it cod throat, and over here I think it's cod tongues. But the part under here, then you have the cheeks. And then you have a lot of gelatinous structure and muscle around it, So something as simple as smoking the head and picking off all the stuff, you could just throw it into a salad. So, one head like that is easy enough to make a meal for 2 people out of, you know what I mean? And something that's super tasty or delicious. Or even, put it in a pot and you slowly boil it with lots of other vegetables and things like this. And then you take off and you pick out all the meat and things. You reduce the stock a little bit. You pour it back over it, then you have like a sort of fish brawn terrine. You can chop it up and have that cold. If you don't want to have meat, you could have that instead. So once again, the opportunities and the things are endless. What you can do with it.
Yeah. So for one head for 2 people would probably be a little bit too. I would probably need several heads to be full.
It depends on the size of the head and what you do with everything else with it.
With the plates you get at the fine dining restaurant, I understand. Susanne is asking about what the sugar does when we talked about the roe.
Okay, sugar balance. So in most things that you would have, so obviously a lot of people have had things like smoked salmon or smoked fish and cured fish and stuff like this. As a general rule of thumb, most people, whenever they're salting and things like this, there's anywhere between 50 and 50% to 60-40 or 70-30. A lot of the time I do 70-30 in the restaurant, so it's not too sweet because I'm not a big sugar fan. But basically the sugar just gives balance. So instead of having a product where it's like too harsh and too salty, the sugar just provides balance. But at the same time as what the salt does, the salt preserves it and draws the moisture out. The sugar does the same thing, but it creates just a bit of balance.
Interesting. Okay, we have a picture of the spine or typical leftovers when you have been filleting the fish. What would you do with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, so the simple, most easiest thing to do is always talk about stocks and sauces and things and stuff like this. But you can also roast it and crush it and grind it down and make it into like a spice. Not only things like that, it's also when you have something like this as well, you can chop it up in little pieces. You could throw it in some flour and then deep fry it. And then you can peel off, when it's cooked like that, you can peel off the thing. And this is a super popular thing all throughout Asia. Realistically, the opportunities are endless with it. But, look, the simplest thing out there is just to make it, look, when it's nice and cold outside and stuff like this, what's one of the best and tastiest things to have? And it's a nice hot broth, So delicious fish bone broth that you could throw some noodles or something else into, and you can have, if you made yourself a nice hot thermos of that, you go for a dive the next day and you pull it out, you get it out of the cold water and you have a hot sort of ginger and sort of fish bone broth. That would be the most warming and nice thing to sort of warm yourself up with after a dive. So why throw it out when it's an extra meal for yourself?
Good point. I also grew up drinking the bone broth from the leftovers after our fishing trips.
Yeah.
So good. Here's the wings or the colors. That's also something that's typically thrown away.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, once again, it's a shame. One thing I see everywhere in the shops here in Norway, in the supermarkets, is roasted chicken wings. Realistically, if you think about it, there's bugger all meat on chicken wings, isn't there? But everybody loves to eat chicken wings. And so what is different from chicken wings to this? Realistically, there's a lot more meat on these than there is on chicken wings. It's just different. You know what I mean? So we should be keeping and saving and chopping these up and roasting them, deep frying them, putting them in a buffalo sauce, and then having them with something instead of just having chicken wings, Because to be honest, you'll get more fat and more flavor out of that than the chicken wing as well.
I also find the meat from both the head and the collar often better than the fillet itself. It's so fat and tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of the time the fat and the collagen that's in and around it. You know what I mean? Which just builds flavor.
And now we are over at the liver.
Yep.
I guess most Norwegian knows liver as something that's not very pleasant from drinking cod liver oil.
It was you know, it's so funny that you say that, because it was actually one of the things that I got punished with when I was young. If I was bad or naughty, and I would have to drink extra cod liver oil. So I actually had a bit of a trauma from childhood from cod liver oil. So when I came here first, and then suddenly realized that it was the place for cod liver oil, I was, you know, a little bit freaked out again. But you know, then again, it is very healthy and good for you. But so different from that. Look, cod livers, and not just cod livers, livers in general from fish, is a great thing, and it's a really great food to be used in many different ways. And even just something as simple as cutting it into a couple pieces, throw it in some flour, really, really hot pan with some butter, and just really quickly, lightly sear it, and then onto some bread with some onions and other things like that. Simple like that. Or you could turn it into a pate or into a sauce or something like that. So why waste another tasty food option for yourself and then spend more money on something else? And you know, when you have a great product that you can use and do many different things with.
Cool. Now we'll go into a couple of recipes, and we are getting short on time, so I guess we'll just keep the pace up.
Yeah, no problems.
Well, let's talk about Norwegian scallops with soy, cucumber, and radish. I wrote some translations down to the left there, so you can see.
Yeah. Look, just think of this as like almost like a sashimi salad. It's a really simple dish. Some thinly sliced scallops with some radish and cucumbers and some spring onions and soy sauce, a bit of lemon on the side if you want, and then a bit of horseradish. And that's really, in essence, that's it. Nothing else. There's no fats, there's no oils or anything else on it. Light, fresh, healthy, gives you energy, and delicious. Simple, easy, and everybody can make it.
I guess that's the easiest recipe you brought, and we'll go up in difficulty after the next.
Yeah. This is a fun, but also, once again, I think this is a very simple recipe that anyone can do in lots of different places. And it's basically garlic butter scallops with cooked inside the shell, straight on the fire, and heavily smoked with lots of juniper. This, you know, the recipe's here, but I think also later the recipe for this will be on the Frivannsliv website, I'm pretty sure, and then also on my YouTube channel as well. But once again, just literally scallops inside the shell with the roe and everything. I put lots of butter and some garlic and shallots in. I put the lid on, and then I had a charcoal fire and used this fired sort of cookware pan. And I put heaps of juniper on, charcoal, let it smoke and burn away, take it off, and then enjoy. And this is just something easy and simple and fun that I made when I was in the snow here.
There's some more pictures here, and it looks so delicious.
Yeah, honestly, it was so beautiful out there. It was cold, it's snowing, and then when you're picking up a hot scallop and you're drinking the garlic butter, dipping some bread into it, and then eating the scallops, it's like there's nothing else on earth that you need at that point in time.
Good. Here's the next level.
Yeah. This one is just going a little bit different. This is just actually one I did at a restaurant, but you could just do a simple variation of this. Anyway, of course, you could do this. This is actually still quite a simple dish. It's just got a little bit more technique to it. But basically, a cod fillet that I wrap in sugar kelp and I let cure for a couple of hours. So I let the salts from the seaweed sort of draw out a bit of moisture and season it lightly. And then I roasted this fillet in butter in a pan in the wood fire oven, sliced it and served it with a roasted brown crab and sort of kelp broth and some thin slices of some radish, a little bit of parsley oil, and some pickled kelp as well. And then if Martin will go to the next slide, you'll see how I've sort of wrapped it and how it's in the wood fire oven. And you see how it's cooked in there. See so the outside, the kelp almost goes like crispy skin on the outside of it, and then the inside is really delicate, smoky but fatty and nicely cooked. But this is quite a simple thing that honestly you could do it at home or in your oven. And of course, you don't have to fillet the fish. You could just wrap the whole fish in wrap the whole fish in kelp, and then just roast it in the oven in lots of butter as well. There's no rules.
With small sea stars on top of it. It's
yeah. Yeah. I wanted to make like little starfish, pickled starfish, but it's
Yeah,
actually it's kelp.
yeah. Nice. I'm just if any of you want to join in for one of like a more of a instead of just talking about seafood, just join a camp. We are doing some different types of courses. We are doing the 1 day courses, 2 day courses, and also the longer form courses. So I brought up 2 courses that we have published now, and we will publish more later, and even make a course up at Holman in Lofoten together with Elijah. So it would be a lot of fun. And typically these courses we do like first we meet up on the Thursday, get to know each other. The next day we do a freediving course depending on your level, and we can do the certification for 1 to 3 stars. The next day we'll do the spearfishing, foraging course and workshop where we meet up and learn about spearfishing, and also go foraging and spearfish, and then we create we make dinner together in the evening with what we have caught. And here we can experiment with different all the different types of species we have been talking about, and many more. And depending on what we get, we create like a plan and make a very nice dinner together. So my hope is that we are able to do it with at the Holman next spring. So we'll keep you we'll publish that probably during this year sometime, and it will be something like this, or with a twist, and we'll probably learn to cook together with Elia. It's going to be a lot of fun. So this camp will be at Bud. It's like 40 minutes drive from Molde. There's a large farm down by the sea, where we'll live together in a big house and get to know each other. I've done several courses like this together with. The last time we did it was on Hitra with seaside apartments, and we were 12 participants, and like after the course we get to know each other, and I'll say we are still friends, the people that met up there, and we have like a Facebook group and staying in contact regularly.
Fantastic.
So it's such a fun thing, and it's really an adventure, and it does not need to be expensive. So this camp from Thursday to Sunday costs 6,500. I'd say it's better than going going to Oslo for 3 nights at a hotel. So
And I'm sure we'll eat better as well. I'm looking forward to it.
definitely. We also have the freediving course at Naustholmen. It's up in Steigen. It's not far from Lofoten. It's a bit south, and
Yes. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I'll be
and
there.
we'll be visited by Elijah there, and I think it's the 4th year I'll go up there this year. It's at the Randi Skau's place. She's the first Norwegian woman to go to Mount Everest, and she's been to 7 summits, and quite an adventurer. And she bought this place. It's a paradise place up with the mountains and the beautiful sea. And we'll go up there in the halibut season this year. To teach a long form course. She bought this island, and it's her pension plan, and the people working there are so nice. She has her own cookbook, and we'll create both try her dishes and also create some of our own. There's a sauna, and it's a flight to Bodø and a 45-minute boat ride from Bodø to go there, and it's a magical experience. So Axel is saying that Naustholmen is a dangerous place to go. You seriously never want to leave, and I can agree to that. Axel and I traveled to join 71 grader nord. It's a TV show to dive and to spearfish, and we stayed at Randi's place at Naustholmen. And I think Axel also was back a short time after with his mom, and it's a really special place, and I would advise everyone to go there. If it's for a freediving course or for kayaking or whatever, just go there experience the place. She's also rebuilt like a diesel tank, an old diesel tank, to a hotel situation. So the link is there, and I can also share the link in the chat if you're interested in joining that. You'll find all the freediving courses from Frivannsliv on frivannsliv.no. Is there anything more you'd like to add now?
Oh, you mean me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I just want to extend an invitation out to anybody. If anybody is coming up or down to, around the Lofoten area anywhere, feel free to reach out. I'd love to go diving with anybody. Anybody's always welcome. And of course, I'm looking forward to traveling and doing some more things as well. But if anyone's around the area, or even if they want to pop in and say hi, come check out the restaurant or anything like this, yeah, feel free to reach out, and super welcome. And yeah, we'd love to have anybody in the restaurant, and I'm love to go diving with anybody everywhere as well. And yeah,
that's good. I'll just show the discount code one more time. I think we went past it a little bit quickly. If any of you have more questions, please ask, and if not, we will leave very soon.
But yeah, once again, thanks a lot to everybody who's come on and joined. And it's so awesome to have so many people so interested and excited about food, adventure, diving, and all these sorts of things. So, and I look forward to hopefully meeting as many people as possible.
I've also enjoyed talking to you. It's really inspiring, and I'm looking forward to go back in the water.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I look forward to meeting you in real life, hopefully soon.
Sounds good. I'm happy to see that you're also enjoying the webinar. It's fun that so many people wanted to join in, and yeah, hopefully I'm seeing some of you for the next webinars as well. It will be the next one will be tomorrow with introduction to freediving, and we'll do another one for basics in spearfishing and foraging later on, with more like techniques and rules and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it all.
Perfect. All right, then I think we are leaving.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks,
Have a
Martin.
good evening.
Thanks a lot to everybody.
We'll see each other on the other end here. But
Yep. Oh, okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much to everybody else, and yeah, all the best. And yeah, any questions with anything, anytime, fire away as many questions as possible, or even to say hi or anything. But yeah, hope everybody's all good, and all the best.
See you.